this? Bath and Body Works Wild Honeysuckle Body Butter. Oh, this is not sponsored, but it feels so good. Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Claudia. It is so wonderful to be here with you today. Oh my God, I am so excited. I gotta just calm myself down. Okay, so I should start with, where have I been? I have not uploaded a video in quite some time, and that's because some of you know, if you've been following my vlogs over on Claudia's Universe, one word, two words to one, Claudia's Universe Vlogs. If you've been following my vlog channel, you know that I've been traveling and I've been out and about. But if you have not joined me on that channel, what are you waiting on? Join me. It's a delightful trip and channel. I went to Connecticut and I stayed for a week. I visited my family. I loved hanging out with them. I hadn't been to Connecticut in so many years. And my sister, my brother, my twin brother and I went up and we went to the reunion weekend where people who have been away from my little town of Waterbury in Connecticut usually come back. A lot of them, not usually, a lot of people come back that weekend and they head over to Lakewood Park, and it's a, hey, how you doing? Just great time. And it was that I did lots of videos on that Waterbury trip. So go on over and see it. It was magnificent. Now, when I came out of Waterbury, I stuck around Atlanta for a few days, and then I went to visit my dad. I went to visit my family in Alabama. It was a lovely experience. I drove down by myself. I had not done that in a month of years. Is that not gorgeous? This is a gift from Sunshine, one of my friends. It's a heel. That's a wine opener. That is so cute. But I didn't have to use that for my sangria because the top screwed off. Yes, it wasn't corked. Ooh, goody goody. But this is Sierra Sangria. Sangria Sierra is a product of Spain. Un producto de España. It's red wine with natural flavors added. Sweet. It's between sweet and medium sweet. But mind you, it has been on chill for at least a month. I've had it in the fridge. Maybe one day we'll have a meet and greet as the channel grows, and we'll have some sangria. Ooh, the smell of this. You can almost taste the flavor on your tongue. It's just so strong and so savory, so fruity. Oh my gosh. That is just, mwah, voila. I've heard you've got to let wine roll about on your tongue before you just gulp it, kick it back, because you just don't kick red wine back, quality red wine. And this is quality, at least for me it is, because I don't know much about red wines, but this will definitely start my learning process as we film these Wine, Women, and Words videos. It's definitely fruity. It's like a bowl of Spanish grapes. That is so refreshing. I better get on with this video before it is Claudia and Sangria. Wine, women, and words. I love writing. I love stories. I love women. And I'm learning to love wine. I've been a writer all of my life. I started writing stories at a very early age. And I would share these stories with my mother. And she was my first fan. I think I am a writer and a reader today because I had a reading mother. And I wrote about that in a newspaper article years and years ago. And that newspaper article is right there on my bookshelf. So I took the newspaper article and had this plaque created. Here is a picture of me when I wrote it, and I was Claudia Sardin. It's Saturday Talk. This was written for a reader's column, and it was published on July 18th, 1998. Can you believe that? It's Natural Beauty Shines Brightest. And in this article, I was speaking about my natural hair and the beauty of learning about one's natural hair. I'll go on and read the opening of it. And the scene is forever etched in my memory. It is a warm place, the kitchen in the 3-story house of my childhood on Wood Street in Waterbury, Connecticut. And it's just so wonderful in that I just left Connecticut not so more than 3 weeks ago. I just left Waterbury, Connecticut, and I filmed being on Wood Street, where the house no longer is because it was burned down. You can see it on Claudia's Universe Vlogs channel. I am a tiny girl, all eyes and ears, no mouth. For I am a girl in a woman's world, to be seen and not heard. I sit cross-legged between my mother's feet, my armpits resting atop her peach-colored knees. She is hard pressing my hair. I can hear the Dixie Peach hairdressing sizzling above my ears, like grease crackling in a pan of frying chicken. Oh my gosh! Okay, guys. So yes, it's very appropriate for me to start. With my own words for this video of wine, women, and words. I finished reading this book a while ago, and I was desirous of sharing it with you because I love reading and I love the books that I select, and I am just fond of sharing the books that I read with others. And I used to share the books that I read with my girlfriend Anita, but we somehow got out of that. I think our lives became so busy. But this is When I Was Puerto Rican, written by the author Esmeralda Santiago. And the front of this says, the Los Angeles Times said about this book, touching and revealing, takes its unique place in contemporary Latino storytelling. And this is the cover of the book. And this is the back cover. But When I Was Puerto Rican was such a wonderful foray into a woman's life and her early childhood, and looking at it in terms of not only the beauty of sharing another person's life, but also seeing how her life parallels with mine and paralleled with my childhood, her childhood, was just a delight. I have been to Puerto Rico one time, Puerto Rico, which is rich port. We used to call it growing up Puerto Rico, but it's Puerto Rico. And I've been once with Anita, as a matter of fact, and we were passing through coming from St. Thomas, and it was beautiful, beautiful. And I kept telling myself, I'm going again, and I'm going to stay a while and perhaps spend a week there or at least 3 days. I don't know. I am going to do that. It's going to come up. It's on my bucket list, and I'm going to know more about this lovely island that's pictured as a backdrop against, I don't know if this is her picture as a little girl or what. Probably is. But this book was indeed a joyful experience to read about her, about Esmeralda's life. Esmeralda was nicknamed Negi when she was growing up. Negrita was the name of her auntie, and it's like a little black girl or a little black one. And so she was much like her auntie, so they called her, maybe perhaps she was darker than the others, and that's why she was called the little black one. But see, to me, as a black woman, yes, she's dark, but she doesn't really come off to me as what someone would say a little black one was. I don't know if the same thing, if you're thinking the same, but I guess in a culture where you have shades of coloring and your mother is really, really light and your father is dark, I can see where you could say the little black one, perhaps. Yes. But looking at myself and her, I would be the little black one and she might be the little yellow one. I don't know, but I found that quite interesting that her name was Negi. Now, Negi was much like me. Negi was always reading, loved books. I was always reading as a little girl growing up, and I'm from a big family. Negi is from a big family. It was my oldest sister, my twin brother, my 2 sisters under me, Bernadette and Glenda, and then my baby sister came along later, and then I had another baby sister when my father remarried, and another brother and another brother. So my family got bigger and bigger, just like Negi's family got bigger and bigger. But Negi was born in rural Puerto Rico. So she was looked down upon by the islanders who lived in the city. But you're always going to have that. Those in the country, those in the city, and the thumping of the nose at ones in different areas. I mean, my dad used to say that the guys from the city were city slickers, and if they were city slickers, they were trying to get something from you. No, it's like the guys down here were trying to get something from you. Okay, but nonetheless, you had that. And so in this story, I just enjoyed learning about her family and how it grew, how beautiful her mother was. My mother was beautiful as well. They probably looked a little similar. My mother, when I was growing up in Connecticut, was very, very fair-skinned with long black hair. And the Puerto Ricans that I grew up, when I was Puerto Rican, maybe I was drawn to this book because I grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut, around lots of Puerto Ricans. So my good girlfriends, and some of my girlfriends were from Puerto Rico. Norma Gonzalez, Margarita, and some were from Cuba, Edita Dubalon. And their families were looking much like mine, and some were dark, some were light, and we were all people of color. And here's my mom. Now, here is a picture of my mom and my brothers and sisters and I sitting on a table. My sister and brother and I sitting on a table with my cousin Billy. And when Puerto Rican men used to see her in Waterbury, they would go bananas. And not only Puerto Rican men, other men as well. My mom was very, very attractive. Anyway, her mom was as well. Negi's mother and father never married. My parents were married. And although they were never married, that didn't stop them from having children and fighting to stay together, sometimes fighting to be separate, because Negi's mom was different from my mom in the sense that Negi's mom was good for leaving. If she got tired of that man, she would pack up those babies, Negi's sisters, and I think 2 brothers, and take off. Go to the city, stay with her relatives in the city, and then return, because somehow return to the country where her father was. Her mother and father had this tremendous attraction to one another that they would eventually get back together. But I don't ever remember my mom leaving my father for anything and saying, okay, let me take these babies and go somewhere else because I don't like what he's doing. Perhaps that was because my mother didn't have people in the family right there that she could go to and just escape for a while. Her family were in Alabama, so that would have been a long way to go with lots of children for her to take a reprieve or a break from my father. But my mother was highly educated, and her mother and father weren't. They were beautiful country people who did the best they could to raise their children based on what they had. And I must admit, her parents were entrepreneurial. They would find a way to make money selling something or doing something that would make sure the family was fed and clothed. Now, my family was entrepreneurial as well. My father had a trucking business, and he would put salt on the roads in Waterbury when the snow came, and he drove his 18-wheelers, or are they 16-wheelers, across country transporting goods. So he had his thriving business. But my mom wanted to be in business. I believe she went to school for business. I really think she did. But she couldn't walk in her business entrepreneurial path because my father wanted her to stay at home and raise the children and raise us, and that is what she did. And she was fiery. My mother was fiery, but she wasn't fiery to the point of saying to him, now look, you're out making it happen. I'm going to be out making it happen. I'm going to get a job as well. And, if you don't like it, we can do some things and do some things separately. No, she wasn't about that life. I don't know if she had a chance to do it all over again, would she have wanted to do it any other way? That is something to think about. So Negi eventually leaves Puerto Rico with her mother and her siblings. All of them eventually go to New York. I believe it was Brooklyn. And Negi attends New York's High School of Performing Arts. She is very very much like me. She was into her books, she was into studying, she was into performing, and I was too, but I was more or less devoted to studying. I have always been a performer, but I didn't have a high school around me that I knew of where I could go and not only study, but also act, perform, dance. You know what? If I could do it all over again, I probably would do that. I probably would attend a high school of the performing arts, because it's just like this sangria in my veins. That's me. I'm going to share a little bit with you from different sections of the book to give you a taste of Esmeralda Santiago's writing voice. And then I'm going to share with you other books that she has written so that you can go and check her out for yourself. Every day after school, I went to the library and took out as many children's books as I was allowed. Mind you, one of my favorite places when I was growing up was the library, la biblioteca. And you don't know, I love Spanish as well. Me encanta el idioma español también. And I love bookstores. So if ever somebody is going on a first date with me, that would be a nice place to do it. We could do lunch in the bookstore. Every day after school, I went to the library and took out as many children's books as I was allowed. I figured that if American children learned English through books, so could I, even if I was starting later. I studied the bright illustrations and learned the words for the unfamiliar objects of our new life in the United States. A for apple, B for bear, C for cabbage. As my vocabulary grew, I moved to large print chapter books. Mommy bought me an English dictionary because that way, when I looked up a word, I would be learning others. By my 4th month in Brooklyn, I could read and write English much better than I could speak it. And at midterms, I stunned the teachers by scoring high in English, history, and social studies. During the January assembly, Mr. Grant announced the names of the kids who had received high marks in each class. My name was called out 3 times. I became a different person to the other 8th graders. I was still in 823, but they knew, and I knew, that I didn't belong there. That first winter, Mommy fell in love with Francisco. I loved her stories about her mother, who lived across the street. He had straight black hair combed into a pompadour, black eyes, and very pale skin. He looked at Mommy the way I imagined Prince Charming looked at Cinderella, and she blushed when he was around. When he came to visit, he brought us candy, and once he brought Mommy flowers. We teased her. Mommy has a boyfriend, Mommy has a boyfriend, Mommy tiene un novio, Mommy tiene un novio. Stop that nonsense, she'd say. You're being disrespectful. But there was a secret smile on her face, and we knew she wasn't angry. Tata didn't like Francisco. He's younger than you are, she told Mommy. You should be ashamed. But Mommy wasn't. Evenings after work, she visited across the street where Francisco lived with his parents and brother. After dinner, they played cards around the dining room table. Mommy never stayed long, but she always came back from his house happy. That put Tata in a dark mood, especially when she'd been drinking. in that case. Everyone's talking, she'd say. We could sip a little wine there. I don't care. No me importa. Mommy would answer. It's my life. Es mi vida. Once Tata and Don Julio had been drinking all afternoon. Now Tata and Don Julio were Esmeralda's grandmother and her grandmother's boyfriend. We knew to stay away from the kitchen when they argued about politics, the price of ham hocks, whether or not his daughters were uppity, and which horse had won the trifeta. When Mommy came home from work, she took her dinner to the living room and ate in front of the television while we did our homework. Now, in that particular part, Mommy falls in love, deeply in love with Francisco, and they are a family. All of the children, Mommy, they're molding themselves into a family, but Francisco passes away, and it is just so sad. And eventually, he's in the hospital more than he's at home, and he starts seeing angels, and he tells Mommy what's going on, and she knows that its time is going to be soon. This book was just so beautiful, so very beautiful. Let's go to the end, and then I'll share with you other books that Esmeralda Santiago has written. She is 71, I believe, and she is such a remarkable woman. She had I think she had a heart attack and couldn't speak for a while and had to relearn how to speak in Spanish and English, I guess. Oh my goodness. In English, Spanish and English. So I just admire her, and I want to read more. I will read more of Santiago's writing. El mismo jíbaro con diferente caballo. Same jíbaro, different horse. A decade after my graduation from performing arts, I visited the school. I was by then living in Boston, a scholarship student at Harvard University. So we have walked similar paths, but she went and I went to Tuskegee Institute and Georgia State University and Jacksonville University. The tall, elegant woman of my audition had become my mentor through my 3 years there. Since my graduation, she had married the school principal. I remember your audition, she said, her chiseled face dreamy, her lips toying with a smile that she seemed still to have to control. I had forgotten the skinny brown girl with the curled hair, wool jumper, and lively hands, but she hadn't. She told me that the panel had to ask me to leave so that they could laugh because it was so funny to see a 14-year-old Puerto Rican girl jabbering out a monologue about a possessive mother-in-law at the turn of the century. The words incomprehensible because they went by so fast. We admired, she said, the courage it took to stand in front of us and do what you did. So you mean I didn't get into the school because of my talents, but because I had chutzpah? We both laughed. Are any of your sisters and brothers in college? No, I'm the only one so far. How many of you are there? By the time I graduated from high school, there were 11 of us. 11? Once? She looked at me for a long time until I had to look down. Do you ever think about how far you've come? She asked. No, I answered. I never stopped to think about it. It might jinx the momentum. Let me tell you another story then, she said. The first day of your first year, you were absent. we called your house. You said you couldn't come to school because you had nothing to wear. I wasn't sure if you were joking. I asked to speak to your mother, and you translated what she said. She needed you to go somewhere with her to interpret. At first you wouldn't tell me where, but then you admitted you were going to the welfare office. You were crying, and I had to assure you that you were not the only student in this school whose family received public assistance. The next day you were here, bright and eager, and now here you are about to graduate from Harvard. I'm glad you made that phone call, I said, and I'm glad you came to see me, but right now I have to teach a class. She stood up, as graceful as I remembered. Take care. Her warm embrace, fragrant of expensive perfume, took me by surprise. Thank you, I said, as she went around the corner to her classroom. I am a former teacher. I know the delight and joy of what it means when students come back to you to talk with you, to share time with you, to tell you that they love you and they still love you, and you can tell them that you love them too and you will always love them. I know the delight of having persisted through a program of study, and I'm just in awe of how similar in so many different little ways I am to Esmeralda Santiago. I love this book. Absolutely adored it. And I miss Norma Gonzalez, and I miss Edita Duvalon, and so many of the others that I used to hang out with and be friends with in Waterbury, Connecticut. And I have heard that Edita is in Miami, or a little place outside of Miami called Hialeah. So if you see this video, Edita, hola. ¿Cómo estás, chiquita? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo has estado? Amor. Y Norma Gonzalez, if you're still living, te amo. Esmeralda Santiago is the author of Almost a Woman, Casi una Mujer, and she wrote The Turkish Lover and Conquistadora, amongst other books. Check her out. She's worthy.